Our tour of intolerance and oppression throughout American history focuses on the oppression of minorities by majorities.
We will also be talking about how these minority groups fought back and expressed their discontentment with these injustices.
Our first stop is Seneca Falls, New York, where on July 19th to 20th, 1848, the first meeting for the fight for women's suffrage took place. This was especially empowering because two-thirds of the audience were women. This convention was a way for women to express and empower each other when they were so strongly oppressed by male dominance in current society. This is also where the Declaration of Sentiments, Grievances, and Revolutions was drafted.
Our second stop is Take Back the Night, which took place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on October of 1975. The first march started after microbiologist Suzanne Alexander Spieth was stabbed to death while walking home alone. Many women were outraged and decided that they were going to march to take back the night and make it so it was safer for more women to walk alone. In 1969, the Stonewall riots precipitated when New York police officers burst into the famed gay bar and started being their usual abusive selves, defined as the modern gay movement. Among the first to physically resist the police was Marsha P. Johnson, now the infamous transgender rights activist who co-founded STAR, Street Transgender Action Revolutionaries, with Sylvia Rivera in the 70s. At 1:20 in the morning on Saturday, June 28, 1969, four plainclothes police officers entered the Stonewall Inn and announced police were taking over. Police were forced the customers to form into two lines divided by perceived gender and show them their genitals to conform matched on the identification card that they possessed. At some point during the raid, Marsha Johnson proclaimed, "I've got my civil rights," and then threw a shot glass into a mirror, adding to the tension and creating an atmosphere of resistance. Some witnesses and historians believe that her action is what instigated the riot. Patrons began to refuse to produce their ID cards, and police decided to arrest everyone still at the bar. Those who were not arrested quickly gathered outside the bar and quickly drew a crowd of over 1,000 queer people. As rumors spread throughout the crowd that those inside were being beaten by cops, they began throwing pennies, beer bottles, and other items at the police. A drag queen who was shoved by an officer in front of the crowd responded by hitting him over the head with her purse as the crowd began to boo. Soon after, an unidentified lesbian was hit on the head by a billy club after complaining that her handcuffs were too tight. She faced the bystanders and shouted, "Why don't you guys do something?" The police threw into the back of patrol wagons, and at that point the crowd began to mob and collectively resisted the police. The Stonewall riots can be seen as especially important today because it shows the peak of the growing tension on transgender people and how they are perceived by society. People such as Laverne Cox and Caitlyn Jenner push this boundary, and like Marsha P. Johnson, are making it apparent how much we need people to fix our treatment of LGBTQ people. Mattress Performance was a piece of visual art that Emma Sulkowicz performed during her final year at Columbia University as a visual arts major. This piece started as a way for her to express her outrage and sadness at her apparent rape and the charges set against a fellow student that were not upheld. After the student that assaulted her was allowed to stay on campus and her charges were brushed under the rug by the college, Emma decided that she was going to carry around her dorm mattress to represent the huge weight that she had to carry as being a rape victim. The piece started with her carrying around the mattress alone from place to place along the campus, and to make it clear to fellow students that this wasn't a joke and that this was a real issue going on. Other students started taking part in helping her carry around the mattress and further represented that by acknowledging rape victims and helping them through this, you can make the weight lighter and easier to carry. Emma Sulkowicz graduated this year without her assailant being brought to justice, but it made it very clear that rape on college campus is still a huge issue.
One of the most memorable protests in American history, the March on Washington in Washington, D.C., was led by religious and civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. on August 28, 1963. It was one of the first civil rights protests for Black Americans, and it was also where Martin Luther King Jr. also gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day Even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
The American Indian Movement, founded in Minneapolis, Minnesota on July 1968, is a civil rights movement that addresses racism, police brutality, poor treatment and neglect of Native history and culture, as well as speaking out against issues on cultural appropriation. On April 15, 1920, 2 Italian men, Nicola Sacco and Bartholomew Vanzetti, were described by witnesses as the murderers of a paymaster and his guard of a shoe factory in South Braintree, Massachusetts. After going to pick up their car, which witnesses said was used at the scene of the crime, Sacco and Vanzetti were shortly arrested by police and put on trial. Apart from the eyewitness accounts, there was insufficient evidence given against Sacco and Vanzetti that proved them guilty, and because of the xenophobia during the time, it is believed that the men were wrongfully convicted because of their Italian background and anarchist beliefs. The Sacco and Vanzetti case is yet another example of injustice, oppression of minorities, and intolerance of difference. Sacco and Vanzetti were found guilty of first-degree murder on July 14, 1921, and sentenced to death. After the shooting of 3 college students, Dia Barakat, his wife Yusor, and Razan Mohammed Abu Salah, by their neighbor Craig Hicks, the media neglected to cover the story. Although Craig Hicks was a radical atheist and anti-theist, his wife Karen explains that the shooting was related to a long-standing parking dispute and had nothing to do with the race or religion of the young adults. Hick openly shared his anti-religious beliefs, especially on Facebook, where he frequently condemned monotheistic religions. Since the 1980s, many Black Americans have become frustrated with the targeting of minorities by law enforcement and police brutality. On August 9, 2014, a young black man, Michael Brown, was shot and killed in Ferguson, Missouri by Darren Wilson, a white police officer. This event sparked protests and waves of civil rights movements and speaking out against police brutality. The Westboro Baptist Church, which opened in 1955, is an unaffiliated Baptist church dedicated to strongly condemning and abusing the LGBTQ community, as well as non-Christian faiths such as Judaism and Islam. The Westboro Baptist Church is known for traveling across the country to picket the funerals of LGBTQ people in public events. The hate group's abhorrent beliefs and offensiveness has opened many Americans' eyes to how much oppression and intolerance there still is in our society.
Westboro Baptist Church and Rainbow House are 2 strong examples of conflicting views in American society today. As the Westboro Baptist Church is famous for its strong homophobic and transphobic messages, the Rainbow House shows a more accepting and loving side. The Rainbow House was opened on the opposite side of the street to protest the disgusting behavior of the Westboro Baptist Church. The Rainbow House is an LGBTQ community that opened a museum inside of it and now celebrates difference and love and